as someone who started out with a desire to be an attorney, but ended up spending 27 years in a STEM field as a tech, I learned to appreciate the philosophy of Booker T. Washington, who stressed vocational learning over liberal arts. However, I'd always been taught by certain professors that he was a bootlick with a tendency towards appeasement. I always felt that such a critique was harsh. Yet, after researching the eugenics movement and various thought leaders, I'm inclined to think now that the commentary was accurate. September the 29th, 1906, an article about mob violence in Atlanta led a journalist in the Broad Axe, which was a United Negro Press newspaper, to declare that Booker T. Washington was the greatest single-handed beggar in the world, arch-enemy and traitor to his race, who advised its members to stand still, offer no resistance and be shot down in the streets like common dogs by the white Christians. What strong words, I thought to myself. However, it wasn't until I learned of the meeting of Charles Davenport and Booker T. Washington in 1912. Charles Davenport was the founder and director of the Eugenics Records Office at Cold Harbor Springs. It was the leading center for eugenics research in the United States. Although it is said that Booker T. Washington was not a proponent of eugenics, he opened the door to eugenic studies on students and the people of Tuskegee, Alabama. Davenport ingratiated Washington with one of his books, Heredity in Relation to Eugenics, and a series of questions related to subjects such as the characteristics of a full-blooded Negro versus a mulatto, racial resistance to malaria and a host of other diseases to include cancer, malaria, diphtheria, and suicide. Prior to his meeting with Washington, he attempted to quantify the consequences of race mixing and miscegenation in a study done in Jamaica called Race Crossing in Jamaica. He knew what Davenport was about, so why did he open the door? The only thing that I could deduce would be white validation at a time when blacks weren't seen in a very good light from a very racist and classist scientist. One of Booker T. Washington's well-known quotes stated, "There is no more helpful and patriotic service than to help cement a friendship between the two races that shall be manly, honorable, and permanent." Those words seem to lend credence to his entertaining a man who felt that his very existence as a mixed-race man made him inferior to not only whites but pure blacks as well, because that was one of the premises of Charles Davenport's research. Eugenic assertions that were denounced by scientists in Britain and Europe as racist, classist, and unscientific. Washington passed in 1915 before the advent of the first study known as the Staggerder study. However, they proceeded as planned in 1929. Students of the community, from grade school until college, had every aspect of their bodies measured and placed into categories of black or hybrid, and followed to assess their lives and intelligence. These eugenics experiments lasted for decades at the Tuskegee Institute, leading up to the notorious Tuskegee experiment. The Tuskegee Institute became ground zero for eugenics experiments done on black and mixed-race people. Sadly, the bigotry of low expectation allows people like Washington, Dubois, Kenny, and places like the Tuskegee Institute blameless pawns at the mercy of white supremacy. Their complicity is negated, and they get to continue reigning in the historical books as beacons of excellence when they were complicit.